throw yourself away again. Now you cry yourself to sleep. Cry yourself to sleep.
Hi, I'm Krishna and this is Musicians on the Record. So, hit it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
This is huge, Musicians on the Record. Bring it on.
Hi, welcome to Musicians on the Record. I'm David Ward. This is the show where we get the musician's story, and I am really excited. Today on the show, we're blending East and West. He's been called the rock star of yoga and the Bruce Springsteen of the kirtan devotional style of music. Krishna Das is on the show today. Welcome.
I feel bad for Bruce.
Yeah, I think you're up there though, so that's
okay.
Very cool. Yeah. Thank you so much for making the time, being on the show. Really appreciate it. You just had a birthday a few days ago. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I look good for 105.
You look fantastic. It's all of that meditation and the guru. It's wonderful, right?
Yeah.
So I was actually curious about, you're 71 now.
Yeah.
How has music evolved for you? Where is music at for you today at 71?
Oh, wow. Well, I still enjoy listening to music, all kinds of music. I'm back into Nirvana again last week or two. Full blast in the car.
Yeah.
But as far as the playing of music and making music or participating in that, it's really changed a lot over the years. It's become like a river that flows in instead of out. It's so when I start singing, I can start flowing into that inner space, inner peace, inner presence, and I do it so often that it kind of works, which is was quite unexpected. Yeah. I didn't really believe that anything would work for me, especially, but it works. It definitely it's become a meditation, but not the kind of meditation that you have to sit still and pretend that you're not thinking, but it's not like that at all. It's a very deep and natural practice for me. So.
Your music is both peaceful and comforting. I find it very comforting, parts of it.
Yeah. And
then parts of it is this emotional, passionate build of the Hindu prayers or devotional. When did you first learn this way of music?
You don't learn, you don't learn this. You don't learn to fall in love, you just fall. So it's just, when I first heard it in India, heard chanting in India, I knew that this was something that I could really give myself to. It wasn't, well, maybe I should try that. It was like, whoa, I can really jump into this. And at that time, I wasn't planning to come back to America. I was in India for the duration.
You were staying.
Yeah. So I wasn't collecting stuff to bring back to use for anything, Right. So it was a very simple and necessary movement on my part into the chanting.
Yeah.
And so the practice, the ability to really give ourselves completely to something is a big thing. That's one side of it. The other side is, what are you giving yourself to? So some people can give themselves to a baseball game or sports or anything. Yeah. But it just so happens that this practice is thousands of years old at the very least, and it's about uncovering the true nature within us, who we really are, underneath, all the programs and all the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves that we don't like, and then react and tell more stories. It's about uncovering that. So through the repetition of these, what they call in India, these names, these holy or divine or sacred names or sounds, gradually but inevitably that place inside comes up. It's uncovered.
And these are names of deities sometimes?
Well, yes, but you know, what are deities? I mean, we use words that we don't even know, not you, but everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
We use words we don't even know what they mean.
Sure. Right.
You know, when you fall in love with somebody, you bring them to mind, you feel them, you feel the flow of love towards that being and from that being, that person, and their real name is their essence, in a sense. So these beings they're like us, but they're not like us. They're beings like us, but they are no longer, they're freed of all the negativity and limitation. So when we bring these beings to mind, we can eventually feel a different kind of sensation inside.
And some of this from reading about you, the movie, the documentary that I saw, which is One Track Heart. If you don't know, look it up and watch it. It's great. Some of this is from your trip to India and your guru.
It all comes from that. It all comes from that, you know.
Yeah. Can you talk about the feeling that you had initially when you met him, and or maybe that you still have?
Oh yeah. You know, it's something that gets deeper all the time. Well, the feeling I had, of course, when I first felt him was that this was home. This was real life. You know, I grew up on Long Island, and not much is real there. And I suffered a lot as a kid because I didn't fit in anywhere, even though inside I felt that way, even though outside it was, you know, I made do as best I could. But yeah, when I met Neem Karoli Baba, we call him Maharaji, that was it. Next, you know, that was. Yeah, and I met him before I met him physically. I met him when I met Ram Dass for the first time. And Ram Dass had just come back from India, and he was up in New Hampshire, and actually from here it's over in New Hampshire.
Down a little bit.
Yeah, down in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So when I went to see him, I walked into the room where he was sitting, without a word being spoken or anything. I knew inside, all of a sudden I knew that whatever it was I was looking for was real. And this was a big thing because, you know, you can read a few books. This was the 60s. You can read a few books on this stuff, but they're books. Right. You know, anybody can write a book, and they can say anything. Sure. So even though those books affected me very deeply, like Autobiography of a Yogi and Gospel of Ramakrishna and Zen and Japanese culture, here I walked into the room and I felt it. I felt that this stuff was real. You could find it, and it was in the world. And that was a life-changing moment.
So you felt it from him, and you wanted some of what he had.
Exactly, yeah. And so I kind of hung out with him for a couple of years. And by then I realized that it was coming through him. It wasn't him and his personality, it was actually coming through him. He was a channel for that. And what was coming through him was Neem Karoli Baba. So I decided to go meet the old man.
And why music, KD?
I don't know. It had to be something, and ballet wasn't really my thing.
You gave it a try, but it didn't work out.
My toes hurt. You know?
Right. Painful.
Well, music had always been important for me. You know, ever since I was a kid. My mother used to sing to me. My father used to sing to me. I used to make up songs on the way to school. Oh, the sky and the birds and the trees and the leaves and the bugs and the this. You know, I was singing like the day as it. You know. So it was always very important to me. And then when I first heard rock and roll, you know, that was it. You know? I mean, this was now when I was about 10 years old. I had an older friend who had all this stack of records, you know, old doo-wop records and everything. It was, and I heard Bill Haley and the Comets, Little Anthony and the Imperials, Lee Andrews and the Hearts, Smokey and the Miracles, the Platters. You know, it was like, oh my God. And then that just grew and grew and grew, and then folk music, and then the blues, and it was the blues that really got me more than anything before.
Yeah, blues is great, right?
And it was country blues, Mississippi John Hurt, Skip James, John Hammond Jr.
Yeah, wow.
You know, I wanted to be him. I was a white guy, but I wanted the blues to be. I wanted to be that.
Yeah.
So.
And were you playing anything?
Guitar. I was playing guitar at the time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you know, your voice is really powerful. I think it's really moving. When did you talked about singing as a kid? When did you first, though, start singing and go, oh, this is an actual instrument too that I can use?
What time is it? I don't know. You know, I just started singing. I didn't really. I just sing. I don't really think about it so much. You know. I need to sing. Yeah. It's what I need. It's like breathing for me. If I don't sing, I sink.
But I used to sing with the Kirtan Wallas, the chanters in the temple where I used to stay. And there was one group of guys that I really enjoyed singing with. There were three of them. Their leader was the harmonium player. And he looked like a truck driver. He was rough, he was tough, and he didn't like me at all. And then the other two guys, there was the drummer sat there and the cymbal player sat here. So the truck driver would start a new melody, and then the drummer would answer, then the cymbal player would come back to the truck driver, around and around and around. So it started out that I would sit on the other side of the room, you know, and sing along. But after a while, they kind of invited me into their circle. So I sat right here, next to the cymbal player, and these melodies were really difficult. So I would just try to mimic everything he sang, you know, because I didn't know this stuff was really hard. So one day, the truck driver starts a melody. Now, when I wake up in the morning, my voice is... And over the course of the day, it kind of comes up to where human beings can actually hear it. These guys wake up in the morning, and it's up from there. It's insane. It's impossible. It's so hard to sing along with these guys. But that's what they do, so. Anyway, so then the truck driver started this melody, like, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I broke out into a sweat. How am I going to do this, you know? And that was just the first, like, 3 words, you know. The thing went on for 20 minutes, each line. So it went around a couple of times, and I just listened to my buddy here, you know. And I went, ah. So I had my eyes closed. It came around to my turn, and I went, Hare! And he had gotten up to go take a piss. And I was left alone with this. And it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I finished the line, I went, ah! The only time that truck driver ever talked to me was right after I finished that line. He looked over at me and he goes, nice. If he had said anything else, I guarantee you I would not be here today. So we're going to sing one of those melodies. Don't worry, anything that comes into this, no matter how difficult it is, it comes out very simple. There's no option.
You know, your movie touched me in a way. It's very powerful because for me, as a therapist and a coach, I help a lot of folks with depression, recovery from addiction stuff, and I thought it was very brave and strong and vulnerable that you shared a lot of your story around that. I wonder, can you talk a little bit about how you feel like music helps and heals with that?
Well, there's two things. There's music, and then there's, I don't even know what to call it. Let's say chanting, just for the sake of having to call it something.
Sure.
So the chanting has music in it, right? Hopefully the music is pleasant and will grab our attention. But what we're chanting are these mantras, you know, which come from the East. Either Buddhist mantras or Hindu mantras or Sufi or even Christian mantras in English. So the music helps us pay attention, but that's the syrup that the medicine of these names is held in. This is the syrup that holds the medicine. It's not the syrup that cures you, it's the syrup that makes you take the medicine because it's sweet and it hides the medicine. And by taking the medicine, you're cured of your disease. The music itself is not enough. I mean, I love music, but if music was enough, every musician would be happy. And that is not the case, unfortunately. So the music just naturally, for me, you know, and the chord progressions are all basically from rock and roll, you know. So it's what I grew up with. This is what moved me the most and saved me during my difficult period of time. But in this case, it is the mantras of the name that plant seeds of opening that stay with us. They plant seeds within our life stream, within our mind stream, within our heart stream. And those seeds will grow. The music might pass away and disappear, but the seeds that we plant stay there. And those seeds, in a sense, open us up. They're the things that open us and allow us to free ourselves little by little from all those negative stories and behaviors that we love so much.
Kind of chips away at that, or
it kind of melts them away a little bit. Things become a little bit. You don't really notice it necessarily directly, but over time, if you look at your life, you might notice that you spend less and less time in those heavier negative states of mind, and you think, wait a minute. I used to be fucked up, you know, what is this? I don't care, it doesn't bother me so much anymore. And you don't necessarily know how it happens, but it happens. You spend less time giving yourself a hard time and suffering from that.
Do you have a favorite mantra or name that you call that brings you more peace than others?
No, they're all, for me, they're all the same. For me, they're all, you know, it's just, you know, when the newer chants, maybe for a while you kind of get off on them more because they're like, hey, you know. But I sing when I sing with people. I don't really have a set list, but I'll sing whatever comes into my mind, and it kind of it morphs slowly over time. It doesn't change a lot night to night, but over a year, you know, now I'm started singing stuff I haven't sung for years. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't even know.
And your latest album, Trust in the Heart, is that the same way that you record as you're playing live, sort of making that up, or you have an idea of what you want to create?
Well, if you're going to go in the studio, you should, and you don't have billions of dollars, you should have some idea what you want to do, and with whom you want to do it. So yeah, it takes a little planning. But the recording itself, we've been doing them live in the studio lately, which is with the band all sitting together in one room, and we can hear each other and see each other, and the chorus is in another room behind a glass wall because that would leak too much.
Sure.
So then we just play and sing, and you know, Jay Messina is one of the greatest engineers in the world, and we've been working together for a long time, and actually I owe him a phone call, he just gets the sound, and then I go to his house and we mix and mix and mix until it sounds like the way we want it to sound.
That's terrific. You're obviously on tour, because we're in South Portland, Maine right now.
I'm always on tour.
You're always on tour.
I tour from my bathroom to my bedroom. I can't even figure out what's going on.
Where are you going after this? You talked about traveling.
Yeah, I'm going off to Hong Kong, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Can you talk about, you mentioned your band, can you talk about what you love about them as musician, as people?
Well, I've been thinking about getting a bunch of computer programs, replacing the whole bunch of them, but it wouldn't eat as much, and they're easier to carry around. Sure. No, it's been great. You know, there's never been an idea of having one band, but over a period of time, the usual suspects kept showing up. Yeah. And for a long time, this guy Ty Burho was playing with me. It was just me and Ty on the road. Ty is Zakir Hussein's premier Western student, tabla student. And then he was killing his hands because he was playing so hard with me. So he wanted to go back to Indian classical music. So he introduced me to Arjun, who was one of his students, and he's gotten to be a very good tabla player over the years, especially in this style. He's not a classical Indian tabla player, but he's a punk drummer who plays tabla very well. Great. And that works fine.
I love it. Right.
And you know, and there's two bass players I usually work with, Mark Gorman on the West Coast, and for a lot of touring, and Mark Egan on the East Coast. And those guys are fantastic. And then David Nichtern comes and plays guitar with me, and he's a Buddhist meditation teacher and a great songwriter and guitar player. And Genevieve Walker, who's just semi-retired with her second baby, she's taken a long leave, plays violin, and now lately Noah Hufeld plays with me by cello. So and Nina Rao plays cymbals and sings. So that's the band. And unfortunately, you know, like I'm just going with the drummer to the east because I can't afford taking a band.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
So I miss out on that.
Sure. Hard to do the tour bus around.
We did a few tour buses in New York, and I mean in the States, and it was fun, but it was rough.
Yeah. From your movie, I remember hearing you say the tour bus did not have the complete facilities.
No, it had the facilities, but you were not allowed to poop in the toilet because there was some connection with the air conditioning or something, some crazy thing like that. So the scene in the movie was great. That guy Denny was such a great guy. He happens to be like a phenomenal musician and piano player. Really? He played with us one concert. We brought him up on stage.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I love that. I love that part of the movie. The other part of the movie that I was blown away with, and I'd like your confirmation on, was, you know, I see you doing this kind of music and the meditation, but it wasn't always that way. What was your involvement with, you were almost a member in Blue Oyster Cult?
I was at Stony Brook, and I had a friend who was an art major and also into music, who met some younger guys, high school kids I think, in Stony Brook, who were learning how to play their instruments and wanted to have a band. And so my friend knew that I could sing, so he put us together, and we played together a few times, but you know, they were just starting to smoke and I was just finishing with it, and I was kind of crazy. They were crazy too, but I was also crazy. So it just kind of, and then I left school and went off somewhere else. And then, so about 3 years later, or 2 years later, I was going to live with Ram Dass for the summer. I had met him while I was living up in New Paltz. And I came down to, I left my house, I packed everything up, put it in my car, 2 dogs and a cat.
Wow. In the car?
In the car, and all my worldlies. Yeah. And I drove back to Stony Brook from upstate New York for a Jimi Hendrix concert. Wow. And then after the concert, I was going to drive up to see Ram Dass in New Hampshire because he was expecting me. Yeah. So after the concert, and the guys in the band don't really know this except when I talk about it because they didn't know. Sandy Perlman, who was the producer, who brought the Clash over and produced a couple of their, he was their manager and producer. He came over and asked me if I'd come back to the band because the guy who replaced me couldn't sing in the studio, and they had a record cut and they had a tour arranged and no singer.
Wow.
So he asked me, and I said, well, you know, this was my dream.
Yes.
But I just moved out of my house, and Ram Dass was expecting me, and truthfully, what I was feeling from my connection with Ram Dass was, you couldn't compare it even to my own dreams. It was beyond my own dreams.
Yeah.
So I couldn't say yes.
Yeah.
And later they became the Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, so your dream changed.
At that point, they were the soft white underbelly.
So, were they?
Yeah, they were.
I had to ask that question because as a drummer, I need more cowbell. So thank you
well,
for.
there was plenty of cowbell in that band.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, the other part that I loved, part of your career, nominated for a Grammy, and I've heard you in other interviews talk about the process of playing at the Grammys, not all that, but the way you combine the East-West. Anybody who does the chanting and includes the Yardbirds for Your Love is good with me. So how did you come up with that?
You know, believe me, I wish I could say I thought it up, but it just came out in sound check.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
Just happened.
Amazing. Yeah.
Just, I went, wow, you know, those chords, that's like, wow, I could sing that. And I sang it, and that was it, and it worked. That's pretty much how a lot happens. It just kind of comes through. I don't sit down to make a chant, to write something. Usually I'll wake up in the middle of the night singing something that I don't recognize, or I'll be in the car and I'm singing something, I go like, oh, what's that? And then it's like more like downloading than creating.
Do you use that a lot, recorded into your phone?
Sure, I have like 300 audio memos in there, which I've never listened to, of new tunes.
Right.
You know, so
the latest record coming soon on
the latest
phone.
20 records.
Right.
I have no idea what's in there.
Right.
Someday I should go back and listen.
Right.
Just on the way down here, something happened.
Right.
I don't remember what it was now.
Wow. Amazing. What's the feeling, if any, that you want people to feel with your music?
Well, I like people to feel empowered to use the practice for themselves, to feel that this is a way of touching a deeper place inside. And because if they feel that, they'll do it, and then that will help them, not for any other reason, because it helped me. It helps me. So when I sing, I'm sharing my practice with people. I'm not trying to get people off. I'm not trying to give them any kind of experience. I am trying to enter that inner chamber, that inner presence more deeply myself. So, and I'm trying to enter into that love within, so to speak. So I think people seem to taste that, get a taste of that, and then hopefully they'll remember that next time they feel bad, and they'll sing a little bit, chant a little bit, and it might help them feel better.
Certainly can maybe bring us more to our authentic self.
Sure,
around that.
that's what it's about.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Can you say what Krishna Das means?
Well, Krishna in India is one of the forms of God, and Das means servant. And Das, the Das lineage is the lineage of Hanuman, the monkey god, who is the servant of Ram, who's one of the avatars, you know, one of the, in the mythology or the legends, more accurately, of India, there's the Krishna legend, the Ram legend, the different incarnations. So in the legend of Ram, Hanuman is a very big player. He's, in fact, he's always, he serves completely, he overcomes all obstacles, he destroys all the bad guys, and he never ever thinks that he's the doer. He's experiencing reality. Even while he's in motion, he's experiencing stillness. Even while he's doing, he's experiencing the one who's doing through him rather than, and so there's no ego or pride arising. So he's called the perfect servant, but he's also the connection between the Atman, the soul, the particular individual so-called soul, and the supreme soul. He's the one that connects us back up with that supreme being, that our true nature.
Amazing. And you know, I've noticed there's a lot of red in their tradition. This fits very well in Maine, by the way.
Yeah,
this is
I know.
excellent.
I had to move up here.
But it's more than that, right? This is
well,
part of the tradition.
Well, there was a period I was having a very hard time, and I was actually having a nervous breakdown, and I was actually thinking about killing myself. And Maharaji kind of, what's the word? He undid what I was thinking. He really saved my ass. And after that time, he said to me, you know, you wear red, you're Hanuman, and you have to wear red. And so he had me dye everything I had red. So then when I came back to the States, you know, I just thought, okay, plaid is okay. Yeah. So, but as long as it has some red in it, it'll work for me.
Excellent. Yeah. The harmonium. It's a beautiful instrument. It's a little unusual instrument. When did you first pick that up, and do you know how to play it, or do you just...
Once again, you know, don't give me credit where there's no credit due. I was singing with my little one-string ektara, which is like a drone, like a rhythmic drone. Yeah. But too many people were coming and it wasn't loud enough. So I had to find something louder. And also, I like chord changes, and I know Westerners like, so I had a harmonium around, and it's just a regular keyboard, but you play with one hand and pump with the other, so that's good, because I can't play with my left hand. So, you know, I just started picking out some simple chords and melodies and for the chants I was doing, and, you know, that's the deal. I can't play Indian music. Indian music is a whole discipline in itself. Wonderful discipline, but it's... I'm too busy chanting.
It's very complicated music, right?
It's very complicated in terms of very particular ways to play certain notes and certain scales at certain times of day. It's very deep study. Yeah.
And plans to go back to India?
I'm always planning to go back to India at one point or other. I was just there last October, and maybe soon. Yeah.
You also do the very cool YouTube series called Chai and Chat.
Chai and Chat, yeah, that's fun.
Tell me about that.
Well, you know, I like meeting people and talking with people, and so because we had so many hits on our YouTube channel, I think it was, they give us free time at the YouTube studios in New York.
Wow.
So we decided, and they have a set that's like a diner. Yes. So we decided to just have, you know, some chai, some tea, and some talk, some chat.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, tea and talk or chai and chat. Right. So
I didn't realize that was the YouTube studio.
It's the YouTube studio. No, it's YouTube Studios.
That's great.
My kitchen looks a little different.
That might be more intimate though. Your kitchen,
enough room.
Not enough room. Yeah, that's great.
But it was very nice. It's fun to do it, and we send out an email, and people sign up and they come. And that's the deal. It's incredible. It doesn't cost anything. It's just
amazing. Yeah. And people ask questions, talk about spirituality, life issues.
We just share space and whatever comes up. Yeah.
One day he was walking down the street and he saw an old man sitting on the side of the road teaching the rules of Sanskrit grammar to a group of young students. And he could see that this old guy was going to die soon. And that also he'd never done anything to help himself. He'd never done any kind of practice and never really looked at his stuff, you know. So out of compassion, he went up to him and he said, "Oh, my friend, Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam." Bhaja means to sing, to praise, to remember. And Govinda is the name of God. So it basically was telling this guy to get his shit together because he was out of here. So that night he went home to his place and he wrote a beautiful hymn that he called Bhaja Govindam. And each verse described the ways that we just let our lives go by. We never pay attention, we never wake up, we never do what's in our own best interest. And at the end of each verse, the chorus went, "Oh my foolish mind or foolish heart, Bhaja Govindam." Right? He was singing to his own mind, his own heart. So, you know, I've listened to this hymn for years and years, and I always thought it would be great to rewrite it with modern images, you know, like TV, iPhone. This is how I waste my time, you know. But it's just too long, and I'm too lazy, so that ain't gonna happen. So instead, I wrote a couple of new verses in English, and I'm going to sing them for you. And then we're going to sing Radhe Radhe Govinda, Bhaja Govinda. Tell you a funny story though. So I told this little spiel that I just gave you. When I first wanted to sing this with people, I was a little nervous, and so I introduced it like this. And later on, a friend of mine who was sitting in the audience. She said, when I said that these verses were in English, the guy next to her went, "Ah, I didn't come here for this." Is that fantastic or what? Right? I love that stuff. But let's think about that just for a second, right? What is it that the guy didn't come there for? English, right? He wanted to sing some foreign words that he had no goddamn idea what they meant. From now until forever, and he didn't care. But English is, for most of us, is the language that we talk to ourselves in, that we tell ourselves stories about ourselves that we don't like, and we don't stop. So he just wanted to get away from all that. So I respect that, but too bad, right?
You talked about in your movie, one of the biggest things that helped you near the end of the movie, the revelation of being a drop in the ocean versus the ocean. If I got
Something
that right.
like
Something
that.
like that,
Yeah.
my paraphrasing.
Yeah.
How is that practice going for you?
Well, it's not so much a practice as it's a realization, like you said. You know, once you see something, you can't forget that you've seen it, or once you experience something. And I had an experience where I recognized that I might think I'm a wave, but even so, the wave itself is made up of nothing but ocean of water. So the wave is me. The wave is a concept. It's a thought, but actually, the thought is just doesn't really apply to anything, because the wave isn't really separate, and that wave is created by certain forces. In this case, maybe the wind, right? So that's karma. So our karmas create this temporary but illusory sense of separateness, like the wave is separate from the ocean. It's a different thing. But the reality, which is from underneath, is that there's no difference between ocean and wave. And even if you temporarily identify with being a wave, you're still the ocean, even if you forget. So that realization really was powerful for me, because I realized it was okay to be stupid and think that sometimes think that I'm the one doing this. So because I had quit chanting, because I felt I wasn't qualified, because I was a hungry guy, and I was going to use the energy and the love and the attention coming towards me to feed those hungry desires, which was not why I started chanting. I started chanting to reconnect with Maharaji, to reconnect with that deeper place within. And I was going to fuck it up, because there was no option. That's what I would do. Hungry people eat.
Right.
So I just quit, and I said to Maharaji, who'd been dead about 30 years at that point, I said, I ain't chanting anymore, I'm finished, I quit. Either you fix this, or I don't sing. Got it? Well, he tortured me. I went to India. For 3 months I was there, and every day I wake up and I go, you haven't done anything, what's the deal? I told you I'm not singing until you fix this. See, the thing is, I was in terrible despair, because the only thing that I could do to save my miserable ass, I was being prevented from doing by my own stuff. And there's no way I could change that. It was me, that was the problem. How do you change that? So it had to come from him, who is, because in my understanding and experience, he's always present, he's always with me. And so I just said to him, listen, I need to sing, I want to sing, but I'm not going to sing until you fix this. That's the deal. So it's a long story, but anyway, it culminated in an experience of which the part, that ocean and wave thing was a part, where I realized that even when I don't know, even when I think I'm a wave, it's the ocean anyway. So that freed me to come back and sing, even if I was being stupid and thinking it was about me, which doesn't happen that much because of that grace that gave me that experience in the first place.
Sure. In maybe the West, we call that the letting go of ego, dissolution of ego, or minimizing.
You know, asking the ego to kill the ego
Right.
is like asking the thief to be the policeman.
Sure.
There will be a lot of investigation, but no arrest will ever be made. So the ego has to be dissolved through spiritual practice and grace also.
Yeah. And in its proper perspective, or right place maybe, right?
Yeah, I mean, we need ego. Ego is, we need the kind of ego that wants to help people, serve people. We need compassion and kindness and caring. We need peace of mind and we need happiness. Those things, those are in a sense all our own experience of deeper realities. And people have the wrong idea. They think that they have to kill the ego and then nothing. They think that it's a misunderstanding that shunya or emptiness is nothingness. My good friend and dear friend Bob Thurman, he's very clear on that nowhere is there nothing. There, nothing is nothing. There's no nothing anywhere. Yeah. So it's not that there's nothing there, it's just that there's no limitation on the heart, and there's joy, endless joy and peace and compassion too. So what we need to do is stop thinking about ourselves all the time, which is a very difficult thing to do.
Right.
But I think the chanting practice is something that trains us and can actually release us from those obsessive stories that we're so good at.
Right, we can certainly come up with stories, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Lastly, because I know you've got a performance to do, you've been through a lot in your life, musically and just life-wise. For someone out there that might be struggling or wants to follow in some of your footsteps with music, what advice would you give them?
I always tell them, don't quit your day job. You know, you know how you call a musician in New York? Oh, waiter. So no, but you do have to follow your heart. And but people ask me all the time, oh, I want to share my chanting with the world. And I say, really? Something wrong with you? Do you have a headache? Should I call a doctor? I don't want to share my chanting. I don't want to sink. I don't want to sink in this ocean. I want to stay alive. And chanting keeps me alive. If I was doing it for somebody else only, like, then it wouldn't work. But I'm sharing the very practice that I do that keeps me up to here in the water. I don't sing, and I go, I sing and I'm okay. So it's not about wanting anything from this. It's about wanting to find that love that lives within us as who and what we really are, and freeing ourselves from our negative emotions and our destructive emotions and the pain and the grief and the betrayal and the fear and the shame and the anger and the greed. These are the things we have to free ourselves from. That's what the chanting is, a spiritual practice that will do that. But you have to be doing it for the right reasons, right, to some degree.
Sure. And obviously doing your own work is doing good work in the world and helping a lot of other people.
That just happens by mistake.
A happy accident, right? A happy accident.
Yeah.
Final, most important question, Beatles or the Stones?
You know, it was the Stones when I was coming up.
The blues, right? It's a hard one.
Then I went to the Beatles. I just don't, I think they're two sides of one coin. Right. You know, you can't really separate them.
Right. Changes daily for me, so.
And the Stones changed as years went on too, you know. They,
totally.
From doing other people's music, they wrote some of the greatest songs that have ever been written.
Right, no question.
Yeah.
Krishna Das, thank you so much for being on Musicians
Great.
on the Record. Namaste.
Okay.